This is Sophia, and I will be doing my contemporary criticism on O Pioneers by Willa Cather. The article that I used is The Unfinished Self, Willa Cather's O Pioneers, and the Psychic Cost of a Woman's Success from the textbook Women's Studies from 1986, and this is volume 12. The article is published by Warren Motley, a professor at Rutgers University at the Department of English. This peer-reviewed article was published in 1986. The specific book or the specific volume focuses on classic American literature of female authors, and one of those specific authors was Willa Cather, and her ability to portray women in a different light during the time that she wrote her books on. For this argument, the author Warren Motley has two main arguments in this article. One of those arguments is Warren Motley discusses the need of readers who want to find a strong heroine in American literature turn to Willa Cather, leading to the author's argument that patriarchal society injures Alexandra Bergson's ability to express her emotions and sexuality. Another argument is the isolation deprives Alexandra of her self-image, while it contrasts the strong sexual nature presented to the reader. And to further put context into the first argument, I'm going to dive into what Warren Motley meant by that first argument. And so it's pretty much put a context in a patriarchal society in O Pioneers. For the first point, Warren Motley really focuses on Willa Cather's character, Alexandra Bergson, who is marked by remarkable duty at the beginning of the book by her father, who he solely depends on her rather than her brothers for maneuvering the farm, the frontier. And with this, Motley argues that there is a paradox in her triumph as a pioneer, as her inner life is reduced to terms of her achievements. By that, Motley further argues that Alexandra is successful by claiming male prerogatives, power, and autonomy. His second point is Alexandra must navigate both the matriarchal and patriarchal role in her life as she navigates pioneering life. O Pioneer, for a third point, O Pioneer places Alexandra in a place where she is deeply connected to the landscape, where Motley argues that Alexandra marks her heroic stature by setting herself towards the land with love and yearning, which further supports the idea of her having to step into a patriarchal role to counterfeit archetypal male pioneers in her success. Motley supports this by stating her success depends on intelligence and power wrestled from its male dominion only by Alexandra's suppression of her sexuality. Pretty much, Motley argues that because of her role that is set from the beginning of the book, she is put in a role of authority by her father, who has tremendous trust in her, which puts her in a position where she now is in control of the family, the frontier, all aspects of business. And so that really puts her from the beginning of the book, from a very young age, she has to suppress a lot of her own identity, because she is being put into a male dominated role where there isn't really any female dominated roles. So this is pretty much the argument that he makes. And so because Alexandra is a complex character, and that is business savvy, as she was placed in this role through her father, whose intuition with the land makes her aware of her role in keeping the families alive. And then he further argues that Alexandra's female identity is from having to harden herself. One can look at her house and see how it is unfinished and derives a dominant nature from it. And so pretty much what it means is that Alexandra has to put a front, because she will be viewed negatively She's breaking the norms of what pioneering is, and so she is one of not many women who are business savvy, who understand pioneering, and this is a male-dominated field. So for her, she has to be hard. She has to harden herself so she can't be looked down on. And so yeah, the Motley further argues that Alexandra is a domineering character because of her surroundings, and it's further argued by her surroundings of her house, and even more about why she doesn't really, it's not that she doesn't take care of herself, but she doesn't really care to have a front of a feminine character because she is so used to being in a male dominated field, and she has to be hardened because of this. So her female identity is coded as male because of what was put on her from a very young age. And for the second argument is Alexandra's isolation of character. Motley further argues that the surrounding involvement with lovers and family paint a depressing picture for Alexandra as she holds on to traditional values that have kept her from exploring her femininity. As said before, she has to suppress her femininity because of the role she's in, the business that she has, the people that she has to take care of now, and because she has been in this dominated role for so long, male dominated role for so long, that sometimes she doesn't explore her own identity as a woman. And so Motley argues that the sole care of her land, she has to, it stems from society as she clashes with her brothers who question her role of authority. So there is a lot of clashing of her role of authority because during this time they're not used to seeing a woman being in charge of lands. And this is further argued because her brothers have made it known that they're starting to doubt her role of leadership because of the new character introduced as Carl Lindstrom, who was a family friend, and pretty much what Molly argues as the property of a family belongs to the men of the family because they're held responsible because they do the work. Molly argues that this is coming from a prejudiced viewpoint where Alexandra's position as a landowner in conventional life has kept her brothers at bay. And so it just pretty much says that by refusing to stay, Alexandra, until he has made his fortune in Alaska, betrays a fear of living with a woman whose economic power surpasses his own. So Carl Lindstrom pretty much understands the role that Alexandra has and the success that she has, and so sometimes that is seen as intimidating, and so that's why sometimes Alexandra's self-isolation comes in, because she understands that she's very dominating in her business, as well as the fact that sometimes she can drive away people in her life because of the role that she has. And why is this article relevant to our reading? Or why is this book relevant? Or this argument relevant is because to our reading, it depicts a strong heroine that is not often seen in early American literature. The early challenges of Alexandra's life give way for her livelihood to be challenged by oppressive and patriarchal roles that define the book. Understanding her character gives way for the understanding of traditional roles of the era, the challenges of success in a male-dominated world. This gives way to female empowerment, economic independence, and the challenges of being in a patriarchal society. It also reflects on the expanding frontiers of pioneering as well as the impact on American literature. And here's my works cited.